And Sarah Baxley, good to see you. Thanks for being here. Well, this is a pretty awesome crowd. I mean, we both, you know, Lake County, we got North Lake and we got South Lake. So it's pretty cool to have both North and South here today. And Commissioner, we are very excited for you to be here in Lake County. Just a little bit about it. Lake County, for you, is that Donald Trump we pulled in for Donald Trump 60% of the vote in the general election. And during the primary, Trump got 49%, Marco 23%, Cruz got 20%. So it was in the primary, a lot of conservative voters right here, your type of folks, right here in Lake County. And you know, Adam knows Lake County. He was born and raised right there in Polk County, 5th generation, coming from a citrus and ranching family. So he understands business. He understands the cost of regulations and what they're doing to our economy. And it's pretty exciting. If you remember when I was in Iraq back in 03 and 04, it just gave me comfort to know that a local congressman had my back when I was there. And Adam has been very supportive of the veterans. As Commissioner of Agriculture, he started Operation Outdoor Freedom. And he provided, and this is really cool, for our veterans, he provided some really neat hunting and fishing opportunities. And I think 3,000 veterans have had a chance, almost 4,000 veterans have had a chance to get out and enjoy and go out hunting and fishing because of the program that Adam started. And it's just pretty neat. And as a gun shop owner, you know, that's like the first thing I look for in a candidate. And so Adam has this perfect 100% NRA rated pro gun record. As a concealed weapon permit holder, you know, I appreciate the fact that there's a candidate that has a concealed weapon permit. Now, I don't know if he has his on him today. I know I have mine. Even though we are amply protected here. The sheriff couldn't make it, but he sent his team to represent the Lake County Sheriff's Office. And so it's just really neat, Adam, that you're here, that you care enough to spend the time. You know, I'm glad that you're already local, just down the road, so you know about Lake County and our needs. And the fact that you've been so supportive of our veterans, so supportive of our Second Amendment rights, those are the type of people, and particularly Adam is the type of man that we need to be governor of the state of Florida. Someone that understands us and has good, principled, conservative values. That is a 5th generation Floridian that will put Florida first. We'll put Florida first. And will provide really the American dream. Opportunities for every American of all walks and stripes. And with Adam's experience and his knowledge and his background, there is not a more capable candidate for governor of the state of Florida than Adam Butler. Adam?
Thank you. I think I might just let it go with that. That was pretty nice. Thank you very much, Kerry. I appreciate your friendship, your leadership, your service to our country, your sacrifice that your family made for you when you were over there serving, and just a great American. And Commissioner Parks, thank you very much for your kind words and your leadership for Lake County. It's great to have a good crowd here. I know it's the day after Labor Day weekend, and unfortunately, as what happens on all too many Labor Day weekends in Florida, we're staring down the barrel of a hurricane. So let's just pause for a moment of silence. We don't exactly know where that storm's going to go. It's almost impossible at this point for it to avoid affecting Florida. So somebody who is our neighbor in our state is likely to be impacted by that storm. So let's just take a moment of silence and pray for God's blessing on our state. Thank you. Amen, and thank you. We just pray for a hedge of protection around Florida. we've got a few people in our office who've moved to Florida since 2004, and I was showing them the 2004 map of Charlie, Francis, and Jean intersecting over Bartow. And so I didn't get 3 roofs, but I had 3 reasons to get a roof, because the first one put a tree down on one side, and the second one put a tree down on the other side, and the third one put a tree down on the other side. So I had it looked like a quilt of blue tarps. So people thinking, you know, inland Florida, Polk County, Lake County, Marion County, that it's not going to affect you, and it will. And so one of the things I talk about as I travel the state is the most dangerous thing in Florida politics is a short memory, and we just can't allow complacency to creep in, because we've had so many people move into our state since the last big storm or since the last big wildfire season, and anyway, we need to be prepared. Senator Baxley, thank you for being here, and congratulations. Did I understand that Representative Sullivan got married over the weekend?
Yeah.
So we're going to send her good vibes. I'm thrilled for her. But as Carrie said, I'm from Bartow. I'm from the big city of Bartow, not too far from here. I remember coming up to Claremont with my brother for baseball tournaments, who played right over here at your fields, and spent a lot of time in this area. I, obviously remember what 82, 83, 85, and 89 meant to the citrus industry in this part of the world. And Rick and Tina, thank you for continuing to persevere in the citrus industry in Lake County and West Orange, and we're just grateful for your leadership. As there you go, give them a round of applause. So I am a 5th generation Floridian, always in Polk County. Anybody that came to Florida that long ago was running away from something. They were probably, horse thieves or cattle rustlers or something like that. But when I say that I'm a 5th generation Floridian, I don't say that because it makes me a better Floridian. I say it because it means that the decisions that I make for our state are for what's the long-term good of Florida, not just slapping a Band-Aid on the problem. And my wife, she's a military brat. She's an Air Force brat. We met at the University of Florida. And she often reminds me that there are a lot of things that those of us who grew up here take for granted, that the people who recently moved here value so much about what makes Florida so special. So I love the fact that Florida is the kind of state that people save all year to visit. And when they bring their family to our state, they know that the memories and the experiences that their kids will have for just a few days in our Florida will be so powerful that those kids are going to bring their kids back and want to recreate that same experience in our state. Many of those experiences right here in Central Florida. And I love the fact that people save for a lifetime finding a way to get to Florida, right? I mean, this may be 1 or 2 of you. I mean, how many years did you shovel snow dreaming about one day getting to Florida and being able to wear flip-flops in January and play golf year-round and go out and catch a monster bass in the middle of winter when everybody else is still shoveling snow? I mean, that's our state, and I'm proud of that. I love that about our state. But I want Florida to be more than that. I want Florida to be more than a prize for a life well lived someplace else. I want Florida to be the launch pad for the American dream, so that young people are drawn to our state and they say, this is where I want to raise my family. This is where I want to plant my flag and make a difference and find my piece of the American dream here in Florida. It's where I want to start my business and grow my business and find my piece right here in our state. And that's what we can do together. We have benefited enormously from conservative leadership in our state. If you think about where we were in 2010, 12% unemployment, #1 in bankruptcies, #1 in foreclosures. The Wall Street Journal, Time Magazine were writing our obituary. And today, 4% unemployment, record numbers of tourists, growth is back, and we've protected our AAA bond rating. We're the envy of the nation in job creation. And crime, thanks to the men and women in law enforcement, and I would say thanks to the fact that 1.8 million law-abiding Floridians are exercising their Second Amendment rights through a concealed carry permit, crime in Florida is at a 46-year low. Now compare that to Illinois. that has a homicide rate off the chart, the toughest gun control laws in the country, and yet the highest homicide rate, and a $200 billion unfunded pension liability in that state. Imagine being a teacher or a deputy or a firefighter in Chicago or in Illinois, anywhere, knowing that they're $200 billion in the hole and wondering whether your retirement benefits are going to be secure. Think about a state like New York, same size as Florida. Florida just recently overtook New York in population, but they're basically the same size. New York's state budget is double Florida's. Double. For the same number of people. Now, if they were getting all the government they're paying for, why are they all moving to Florida? So it takes sustained conservative leadership to keep Florida on the right track. Because the inertia is to take a big, diverse state like Florida and throw it toward the left. That's the inertia, to go the direction of New York and Illinois and California. And we can't do that. We have to resist that through strong conservative leadership. So what are the things that we have to do to build on this strong foundation that we have because of conservative leadership in the legislature, the cabinet, and the governor's office? It starts with education. We have to prepare our kids to compete in this economy and win. Not just crank them out, not just worry about what the teachers union wants, but let local communities determine how their kids achieve their education goals. Local control, not Washington, not even Tallahassee. Tallahassee's job is to lay out the standard. How you meet that standard is up to Lake County, because Lake County might do it differently than Palm Beach County. I'm just willing to bet. I'm going to take a guess here. And the way Polk County wants to do it might be different than the way that Broward County wants to do it. That's the way that it's intended to be. If Frostproof High School wants to make a Land Remembered required reading for their juniors, that's their business. It's a local decision. And I've seen the progress that we've made in schools. I'm a product of our public school system. My kids are in public schools in Bartow, same schools I went to. But I've seen how much better their options are than what I had because of changes that we've made to empower parents to make the right choices for their kids. I'll give you a quick example. When I dropped my daughter off at the middle school, there's now campaign-sized yard signs in the drop-off recruiting students to different high schools. Is your child interested in the performing arts? Apply today for Harrison Center for the Performing Arts, a public magnet performing arts school. Is your child interested in a career in the military or law enforcement? Apply today for the Summerlin Academy, which is a structured West Point type academic experience. Public magnet. Is your child interested in accelerated academics? Apply today for International Baccalaureate. Man, when I was in school, the only people who got recruited were quarterbacks and pitchers. Now we are providing choices and competition so that you can customize learning for what your child needs. And yet, there's still some dumb things that we're doing. Last spring, my son came home from school, and I said, how was your day? And he said, well, it was good. It was a big day. We took the Florida Rights exam. I said, well, how'd you do? He said, I feel pretty good about it. I said, well, what was it on? What'd you have to write about? He said, well, we had to read this article about whether or not we need to get rid of the penny. He said, did you know it costs more than 1 cent to make a penny? And I did know that, but I played along. I said, no, I didn't know that. Tell me more. And he's telling me all about it. And he said, so I had to read all this and then make my own decision and then write an essay whether I thought we should or should not get rid of the penny. I thought it was a great topic. Finance, economics, business, reading comprehension, all of it. I didn't think any more about it. The next day, I was touring a school in a different town. And I got finished with the tour, and I thanked the principal, and I said, I really appreciate you making time for me to see what's going on here. I know it's been a stressful week. She said, well, how did you know that? I said, well, I've got a 5th grader. He told me y'all had Florida Rights yesterday. She said, yeah, we sure did. She said, that's good that you're in touch with what's going on. I said, yeah, he told me all about it. It's a fascinating topic. I love the topic, about whether or not we ought to keep or get rid of the penny. And she stopped. And her eyes were this big, and she said, he wasn't supposed to tell you that. And I said, what do you mean he wasn't supposed to tell me that? What, are you going to withhold his 5th grade diploma? She said, no, sir, I'm serious. He signed something. He's an 11-year-old. He signed something. They're not supposed to talk about what the topic is.
Oh, my God.
I said, ma'am, that's crazy talking. When I'm governor, nothing is going to stand between a conversation between a 5th grader and their parent about what they're being asked to write an essay on in school that could determine whether they're promoted or retained. That's just nuts.
Right.
So we got to get rid of that kind of foolishness. I'm for high standards. I'm for accountability. I'm for testing on the right things. But I'm not for anybody from the government saying your 11-year-old can't tell you what they were asked about in school. Think of the abuse that could come from that.
Right.
And here's the other thing that we have to change about education. We talk about preparing our kids to be college and career ready. We're really only serious about college ready. We're leaving 2/3 of our kids behind because there is not one thing wrong with going into the workforce in aviation, aerospace, the construction trades, agriculture, healthcare, you name it. Because most of those jobs are paying better than the barista at Starbucks with a $60,000 student loan debt and a degree in psychology. But the person who's fixing your air conditioner, the person who's going to be repairing roofs in Houston, the person who's going to be laying the plumbing, the person who's building the roads are making more money than many of our college graduates. And more importantly than that, we need to set a standard in this country, beginning in our state, that there's nothing wrong with working hard and building things and creating things and innovating things and growing things. There's not a thing in the world wrong with that. So our state colleges, our community colleges can't keep getting a sharp stick in the eye when they're educating triple the number of students as our universities. So before we pressure students into student loan debt for a degree they don't want and can't use, let's build a system that allows them to be acquainted with what they could earn and how they can get that job, and connecting them with employers to apprentice and intern over the summers, so that just as our college-bound students can dual enroll, get college credits out of the way, have half of college paid for before they ever even graduate from high school, come out with a diploma and an AA, that same student who's workforce-bound has the same type of opportunities to come out with an industrial certification in welding, construction, Microsoft, you name it. But we've at some point, the education establishment hijacked our kids and said, you're a loser if you don't go off to university. And that's just not true. And if we're going to rebuild the middle class in our state, and if we're going to be a state that builds and creates and manufactures things, we have to have a real emphasis on putting career and technical education back into our schools, just like FFA kids get. We need to do that across the board. This isn't 1950s shop. This isn't 1950s shop, but it's a 21st century version of it. Coding, robotics, electronics. The guy that's working on your car has a toolbox and a laptop. We need young people to be able to do both. Because let's face it, if a storm blows off your roof, you'll pay anything to get it back on in a hurry. When the air conditioning goes out, you'll pay anybody on it over the weekend, overtime, whatever. Just get it back on and get mama happy again, right? You know what it costs when your bass boat conks out and you've got to get that outboard overhauled? All of those things are great jobs. Governor Scott puts on our desk every month the job vacancies in Florida. And every month for 7 years, #1 has been nursing. Now, those nursing degrees are not coming from Florida or Florida State, as much as I love both of those schools. They're not coming from USF or UCF. They're coming from Central Florida. They're coming from Polk State. They're coming from Gateway. They're coming from places that are affordable, close to home, and flexible. Because the average nursing student in a state college is not 18 years old and fresh out of high school. That average student has 2 kids that they're trying to get off and keep them moving in the right direction, and they're juggling 2 jobs. And they need to be able to flexibly finish out their credits to get that degree so they can move up the economic ladder. That's where we rebuild the middle class. That's our education program. Put career and technical education back into the middle school, back into the high school, and diversify our economy so that we're not so dependent on ag, tourism, and home building, and that we go back to being more diverse where we're building and manufacturing and innovative things. The state that's the fishing capital of the world ought to build more boats here in Florida. The state that put a man on the moon ought to design, develop, innovate the next leap in technology for the next giant leap for mankind. The state that's trained millions of our soldiers and sailors and airmen. Most Navy pilots earn their wings in Pensacola. Think of the veterans whose first exposure to Florida is in the military. The state that can train them can retrain our own people to compete in this economy and win. That's what we have to do. We have to have the infrastructure to support all the people that are moving here. Nobody wants our state to look like Atlanta or DC or Manhattan. We have to have not just roads infrastructure, but water infrastructure. I mean, if you look at the aging septic systems that are out there that need to be converted to sewers to prevent the impact on our springs and on our lakes, our water policy has to be more than just Everglades policy. People forget about these beautiful Central Florida lakes. They forget about the Swanee Valley Springs. If we didn't have the Everglades, Florida would be most famous for our springs. We're the only place on the planet that has 43 first magnitude springs in one narrow geographic area. Water is our golden goose. It's the key to growth. It's the key to agriculture. It's the key to tourism. If we don't take care of our water issues, water supply and water quality, everything else becomes somewhat irrelevant because nobody's going to want to be here. They're not going to dream about getting to Florida because they're not going to have clean beaches. They're not going to have great fishing. And we're not going to have wonderful springs. It's our golden goose, and we've got to take care of it. These are the things that make Florida, Florida. And that's where I speak as a fifth-generation Floridian, as a proud native who grew up here, who grew up fishing for largemouth bass in the lakes and grew up trying to snag a snook out of the mangroves or pull a red out. We want our kids to have the same type of outdoor experiences that we've had. That's why we started Operation Outdoor Freedom, that has hosted almost 4,000 veterans, over 400 different events, from hiking and kayaking to alligator hunts to dove shoots, and in the fall, one of our supporters, who was the original executive director of Outdoor Freedom, is actually hosting an alligator hunt in our state on Lake Hancock for 11 Congressional Medal of Honor recipients in one place. In my life, I've only met 2, maybe 3. 2 of them from Florida. To have 11 in one place on an alligator hunt in our state is pretty impressive. We're going to show them a good time. That's what we do. It's the largest of its kind in the country, and the only one that has permanent facilities on state-owned lands that are handicap accessible for these disabled veterans to be able to enjoy our outdoors. That's a legacy project because we're committed to make Florida the most veteran and military-friendly state in the nation. And with the help of the legislature, we're well on our way. Of course we want men and women who are transitioning out of the military back into civilian life to do that in Florida. And we want to make that transition as seamless and simple as possible, just like we've done for our concealed weapons permits. As seamless and simple as possible. You can run government like a business. We've proven that. That's how we've gone from 800,000 to 1.8 million by partnering with local tax collectors so that you don't have to wait on Tallahassee. You can go to an office that's already open, already staffed, already paying their light bill, and already has computers. So we've taken the number of offices that offer concealed weapons licenses in the Department of Agriculture from 8 to 48 for the price of a computer and a printer per office. That's it. That's leveraging the government that's already there to do more. Just like you expect Amazon to do, or FedEx to do, or UPS to do. We can't have 2 types of expectations in government anymore. The expectation that you walk into a Publix and if there's 3 people in front of you, you expect that they will open up another line. Or the expectation that you go into a government office and you pack a book. We can't have a world with 2 sets of expectations, the public and the private. We have to have government operate much more efficiently, just like the private sector does. That's my vision for our state. This campaign is a grassroots campaign. It begins in coffee shops just like this. It began on the steps of the old courthouse in Bartow with 2,000 people on May the 10th. And ever since then, we've been traveling the state doing events just like this. A barbecue, a breakfast, a lunch, a Rotary Club. because this is the grassroots that our founders intended. This is what they intended our politics to be. Someone asking for your most precious currency in a democracy, which is your vote. Looking you in the eye, taking your questions, sitting over a cup of coffee to figure out how we make our state as strong as it can possibly be for the next generation. So this is what our politics was meant to be, and this is what our politics will be when I'm your governor. I believe that Floridians want a leader who knows our state, who knows every corner of our state, from the Iron Triangle of Eustis and Tavares and Umatilla. When we were in Bartow, we used to play Eustis. We called them useless, but I don't know what they called us, but I'm sure it wasn't very nice. We'd go play Lake Wales. They'd throw green oranges through the bus windows. I mean, it was a mean rivalry. But you want somebody who knows our little towns, the places that don't have their own interstate exits, but also knows our metro areas and knows their needs. Florida is not Rhode Island. Polk County's bigger than Rhode Island. We stick out in the middle of Hurricane Alley. We need a leader who can respond in a crisis. About every 3 or 4 years we have major wildfires. We need leaders who have managed that type of cataclysm that comes to our state. And as a state that is a major power, we are a target for bad guys. Whether it's Fort Lauderdale Airport or the Pulse shooting. Floridians want a leader who knows our state, knows our problems, knows how to fix those problems, and knows how to bring people together. So that it's not North Florida against South Florida or the coast versus the interior. All of us moving forward together to build a stronger, better state for our kids and our grandkids. So that when we put Florida first, we're not just a prize for a life well lived someplace else. We're the launch pad for the American dream. That's what we can do together. Thank you all very much for the opportunity to share that.